Cartel boss saw a poor single mom returning her daughter's milk. What he did next left everyone shocked. The fluorescent lights of the Save Mart in El Paso, Texas, buzzed overhead like angry wasps. Rosa Delgado stood at the customer service counter, her hands trembling as she placed a single gallon of milk back on the worn counter. The container was still cold, sweating in the dry Texas heat that leaked through the automatic doors. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the store. I need to return this." The cashier, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, glanced at the receipt. "Ma'am, you bought this 20 minutes ago. Is something wrong with it?" Rosa's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Behind her, her 4-year-old daughter, Sophia, clutched the hem of her faded yellow dress, the only one without holes. The little girl didn't understand why Mama was giving back the milk she'd promised for breakfast. "No, nothing's wrong," Rosa said, her accent thick with emotion. I made a mistake. I need the money back." The truth was simple and devastating. Rosa had $12 left until Friday. The milk cost $4. But this morning, the landlord had taped an eviction notice to their door. 3 days to pay $800, or they'd be on the street. She needed every penny. The cashier processed the return without another word. Rosa took the bills, 4 singles that felt like surrender, and turned toward the exit, pulling Sophia by the hand. She didn't see him, but he saw her. At the end of aisle 7, partially hidden behind a display of cereal boxes, a man in an expensive black suit watched the entire exchange. His dark eyes that had seen violence, blood, and empires built on fear, narrowed with interest. Miguel Angel Cordero didn't shop at Save Mart. He owned half the businesses in El Paso, and he'd never forgotten what hunger felt like. What he did next would change everything. Welcome back, my wonderful friends. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thank you for support. If you love what we do here, take a moment to hit the subscribe button, like, share, and let's make this video go viral. Where are you watching from and what time is it over there? It makes me connect better with you. And if you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected places, stay until the end. You won't believe what happens next. Rosa had learned long ago that life didn't care about fairness. She'd learned it at 16 when her parents died in a car accident on I-10. She'd learned it again at 22 when Sophia's father, a man who'd promised forever, disappeared the moment he saw the positive pregnancy test. And she was learning it now, at 26, standing in the parking lot of Save Mart with empty hands and a daughter who deserved so much more. "Mama, why didn't we keep the milk?" Sophia asked, her small voice cutting through Rosa's thoughts. Rosa knelt down, cupping her daughter's face. "Because sometimes we have to make hard choices, my amor, but I promise everything will be okay." It was a lie, but what else could she say? Their apartment was a 15-minute walk from the store, a cramped one-bedroom in a building that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. Rosa worked double shifts at La Estrella Diner on Montana Avenue, serving truckers and locals greasy breakfasts and watered-down coffee. The tips were decent when the customers were kind, but kind customers were rare. But someone was already making plans for her. Someone she'd never suspect. Inside the Save Mart, Miguel Angel Cordero remained still, watching through the window as Rosa and her daughter walked away. His right-hand man, Javier, appeared beside him, concern etched on his scarred face. "Jefe, the meeting with the Juarez contact is in 20 minutes. Cancel it," Miguel said quietly. Javier blinked. "Cancel? But Jefe, this deal is worth." "I said cancel it." Miguel's voice was soft but absolute. He pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. "Find out everything about that woman, where she lives, where she works, who she is." Javier knew better than to ask questions. In their world, curiosity was dangerous. but he couldn't help glancing at the retreating figure of the woman in the parking lot. What had the Jefe seen that he hadn't? Miguel didn't explain. He simply walked toward the exit, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the tile floor. But in his mind, he was 8 years old again, standing in a grocery store in Juarez with his dying mother, begging the cashier to let them take food they couldn't pay for. The cashier had said no. His mother died 3 days later. He would not let history repeat itself. Not on his watch. By the time Rosa reached her apartment building, Sofia was complaining about her feet hurting. Rosa carried her the last 2 flights of stairs, her own legs burning with exhaustion. She'd been awake since 4 a.m., working the breakfast shift before the school run, before the grocery store humiliation. Their apartment door still bore the eviction notice, a bright orange scar against the peeling paint. "Don't look at that, baby," Rosa said, peeling it off and crumpling it in her fist. Inside, she dropped it in the trash and immediately wished she hadn't. What if she needed it for some kind of legal defense? What if, "Mama, I'm hungry." Rosa opened the refrigerator. Half a jar of peanut butter, 3 eggs, a wilted head of lettuce, no milk. "How about peanut butter toast?" she suggested with forced cheerfulness. Sofia nodded, though her disappointment was visible. Rosa had promised cereal with milk this morning, another broken promise to add to the pile. As she made the toast, Rosa's phone buzzed. A text from her manager at the diner. "Can you cover Maria's shift tonight?" 6 close. Extra hours. Rosa's heart sank. She had no babysitter. Sofia would have to come to the diner again, doing homework in the corner booth while Rosa's feet bled in her worn-out sneakers. But extra hours meant extra money. And extra money meant maybe, just maybe, she could negotiate with Mr. Chen, the landlord. "I'll be there," she texted back. She didn't know it yet, but this decision would put her exactly where she needed to be. Across town, in a luxury penthouse overlooking the Rio Grande, Miguel stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His phone buzzed with a message from Javier. "Rosa Delgado, 26, single mother, works at La Estrella Diner on Montana Ave. 1 daughter, Sofia, age 4. Rent, 3 months behind. Eviction notice filed. No criminal record, no family in the area." Miguel read the message 3 times. 3 months behind. That meant she'd been drowning for a long time, probably smiling through every shift, pretending everything was fine. He knew that smile. He'd worn it himself once. "Javier," he said into the phone, "I need you to do something for me, and I need complete discretion." "Always, Jefe." "Good." Miguel's reflection in the glass looked back at him. A man built from violence and survival, now wielding power most people couldn't imagine. "Because what I'm about to do, no one can know it was me." The question was, why would one of the most feared men in El Paso risk everything for a woman he didn't know? The answer would come soon enough. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and yesterday's grease. Rosa tied her apron around her waist, her fingers fumbling with the knot. She'd been at La Estrella for 4 years, long enough to know which customers tipped and which ones didn't, long enough to memorize orders before they were spoken, long enough to perfect the art of smiling when her feet screamed and her heart ached. "You look like hell," said Carmen, the other evening waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a smoker's rasp. "When's the last time you slept?" "I'll sleep when I'm dead," Rosa joked, but the words felt too close to prophecy. Sofia sat in the corner booth, her coloring book spread across the table. She was a good kid, too good. She never complained, never threw tantrums, never asked for the toys other children had. It broke Rosa's heart more than any eviction notice ever could. The evening shift started slow. A few regulars, a couple of truckers passing through. Then at 7:47 p.m., the bell above the door chimed. Rosa looked up. A man in an expensive suit walked in. completely out of place among the vinyl booths and flickering neon. He was followed by another man, built like a wall, with a scar running down his left cheek. They took a booth near the window. Rosa grabbed 2 menus, her hands suddenly unsteady. Men like this didn't come to La Estrella unless they wanted something. And in El Paso, men in expensive suits usually met trouble. "Evening," she said, placing the menus down. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man in the suit looked up at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. For a moment, Rosa felt like he could see straight through her. Through the fake smile, through the exhaustion, through every lie she'd told herself that day. "Coffee," Miguel said. "Black." "Same," said Javier. Rosa nodded and hurried away, her pulse racing. She didn't recognize them, but something about the way they carried themselves, the quiet authority, the way other customers seemed to instinctively look away, told her everything she needed to know. Dangerous men. Miguel watched her retreat to the coffee station. Up close, she looked even more fragile than she had at the grocery store. Dark circles under her eyes, hands that trembled slightly, a name tag that read Rosa in faded letters. "Jefe," Javier whispered. "Why are we here? You want me to talk to her?" "No," Miguel said. "I just want to observe." It was a lie. He wanted to understand. He wanted to see what kind of woman returned milk so her daughter could have a roof. He wanted to know if the desperation in her eyes was real or performative. Because in his world, everyone wore masks. Rosa returned with 2 cups of coffee, setting them down carefully. "Are you ready to order?" "What's good here?" Miguel asked. Rosa hesitated. The truth was, nothing was particularly good. But she needed the tip. The cheeseburger's popular, and the chicken fried steak. "I'll take the steak," Miguel said. "And whatever the little girl in the corner wants, bring her the best thing on your menu." Rosa's breath caught. She glanced back at Sofia, then at Miguel. "Sir, that's very kind, but—" "It's not a debate," Miguel said gently. "Every child should eat well. Don't you agree?" Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away quickly. "Thank you," she whispered. She had no idea she was speaking to the man who would change her life. 20 minutes later, Sofia had a stack of pancakes with whipped cream and strawberries in front of her. Something she'd only seen in pictures. Her eyes went wide with wonder. "Mama, is this really for me?" "Yes, baby, eat." Sofia dug in with the kind of joy only a child who knew hunger could express. Rosa watched from across the diner, her throat tight with emotion. She glanced at the man in the suit, wanting to thank him again, but he was already focused on his own meal, speaking quietly with his companion. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. When Miguel and Javier finally stood to leave, Miguel placed a $100 bill under his coffee cup. Rosa stared at it, frozen. The meal had cost $18. "Sir, wait," she called out, but he was already at the door. Miguel paused, looking back at her. "Keep it, you earned it." Then he was gone. But Miguel wasn't done, not even close. At midnight, after her shift ended, Rosa walked Sofia home through streets that smelled like rain and regret. The $100 bill was folded carefully in her pocket, a small miracle she still couldn't believe was real. It wouldn't cover the rent. Not even close. But it would buy groceries. Real groceries. Milk. Eggs. Maybe even chicken. When they reached their apartment building, Rosa noticed something strange. The eviction notice was gone. In its place, taped to the door, was a plain white envelope. Rosa's heart hammered as she opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with typed words. "Your rent has been paid through the end of the year. You are safe. You are seen. Keep fighting." A friend. Rosa's knees buckled. She leaned against the doorframe, the letter trembling in her hands. Sofia tugged at her dress. "Mama? What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby," Rosa whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's gonna be okay." But who was this mysterious friend? And why would anyone do this for her? The next morning, Rosa woke to find another surprise. A knock at the door. When she opened it, a delivery man stood there with a large box. Rosa Delgado? Yes? Delivery for you. Sign here. Rosa signed, confused. She hadn't ordered anything. Inside the box, groceries. Real fresh groceries. Milk, bread, fresh vegetables, chicken, rice, beans. Enough food for 2 weeks, maybe more. And another note, every mother deserves to feed her child. You are not alone. Rosa sank to the floor, surrounded by groceries, and wept. Sophia ran to her, wrapping small arms around her neck. Don't cry, Mama. Are these happy tears? Yes, baby, Rosa sobbed. These are very happy tears. But in the shadows, danger was watching too. Across town, in a rival cartel's territory, a man named Hector Ruiz scrolled through security footage from SaveMart. He'd been tracking Miguel's movements for weeks, looking for weaknesses, looking for leverage, and now he'd found something interesting. A woman, a child, a sudden interest from a man who never showed interest in anyone. Hector smiled, a cruel, calculating smile. Find out who she is. He told his lieutenant, if Miguel Cordero cares about her, she's useful. And if she's useful. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The game had just become deadly. Rosa didn't believe in miracles, but over the next 2 weeks, she started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, God hadn't forgotten about her after all. The mysterious gifts kept coming. A new winter coat for Sophia, perfectly sized, left on their doorstep with no return address. An envelope with $200 cash and a note that read, for the things you need but won't ask for. An anonymous payment to the diner that covered Sophia's meals whenever she came in with Rosa. Someone's looking out for you, Carmen said one evening, watching Rosa check the corner booth where Sophia sat, now with a full meal instead of just crackers and water. You got a secret admirer or something? Rosa shook her head, but her cheeks flushed. I don't know who it is. I wish I did. I'd thank them properly. Maybe they don't want to be thanked, Carmen said wisely. Maybe they just want to help. But Rosa couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Not in a frightening way, in a protective way, like guardian angels wearing expensive suits. She was right to feel watched. But she was wrong about the angels part. Miguel sat in his office downtown, reviewing security reports that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with Rosa Delgado. Javier stood across from him, arms crossed. Chefe, with respect, this is getting risky. You've spent over $3,000 on this woman. People are starting to notice, and when people notice, let them notice, Miguel said quietly, not looking up from the file. I'm careful. Careful? Javier's voice rose slightly. You had her rent paid by a shell company that can be traced back to us if someone digs deep enough. You've had groceries delivered. You've been to that diner 5 times in 2 weeks. That's not careful. That's enough. Miguel's voice was soft but carried the weight of absolute authority. He finally looked up, his dark eyes meeting Javier's. I know what I'm doing. Javier fell silent, but his expression remained troubled. In their world, attachment was weakness. Weakness was death. But Miguel had made his decision. He just didn't know that decision had already put a target on Rosa's back. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything shifted. Rosa was at the diner, refilling salt shakers during the slow period between lunch and dinner. Sophia was at a neighbor's apartment, Mrs. Chen, the landlord's wife, who'd surprisingly offered to watch her for a few hours. The bell above the door chimed. 3 men walked in. They weren't like Miguel and Javier, polished and controlled. These men looked hungry. Dangerous in a different way. Feral. The lead man had a teardrop tattoo under his left eye and a smile that made Rosa's blood run cold. We're closed for another hour, Rosa said, keeping her voice steady, even as her instincts screamed run. That's okay, the man said, his English heavily accented. We're not here for food. He sat at the counter. The other two flanked the exits. Rosa's mouth went dry. Behind her, in the kitchen, she could hear the cook, Diego, humming to a radio. He hadn't noticed the men yet. "What do you want?" Rosa asked. The man, Hector Ruiz, though she didn't know his name, leaned forward. "I want to know about your boyfriend. The one in the nice suit, the one who's been taking care of you." Rosa's heart stopped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me." Hector's smile vanished. "Miguel Cordero. You know him. He's been paying your rent, buying you gifts, visiting this shithole diner. Why?" "I don't know anyone named Miguel," Rosa said, and it was the truth. She'd never heard the name. She didn't know who her mysterious benefactor was, but Hector didn't believe her. He stood, walking around the counter with predatory slowness. "Here's what's gonna happen, Rosa." He said her name like a threat. "You're gonna tell Miguel that you want to meet him. Thank him properly, and when you do, you're going to wear this." He pulled out a small device, no bigger than a button. "It's a tracker," Hector explained. "You wear it, you meet him, we find out where he goes, who he trusts, what makes him vulnerable. And if you refuse..." He pulled out his phone, showing Rosa a photo that made her knees buckle. Sofia, playing in Mrs. Chen's apartment, visible through the window. "No," Rosa whispered. "Please, she's just a baby." "Then cooperate," Hector said simply. He placed the tracker on the counter. "You have 48 hours to set up the meeting. If you don't, or if you warn him, your daughter pays the price. Entiendes?" Rosa nodded, tears streaming down her face. Hector and his men left as quickly as they'd arrived. Rosa collapsed behind the counter, her whole body shaking. She'd been given an impossible choice: betray the man who'd saved her, or watch her daughter die. That night, Rosa couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the tracking device hidden in her nightstand drawer like a venomous snake. Sofia slept peacefully beside her, unaware that her life hung in the balance. Rosa had no phone number for Miguel, no way to contact him, no way to warn him, but she knew he'd come back to the diner eventually. Men like him always returned to the places they were watching. And she was right. Friday evening, 6:47 p.m., Miguel walked into La Estrella with Javier at his side. He'd been coming less frequently, trying to maintain distance, trying to convince himself that Rosa was safe now, that his job was done. But he couldn't stay away. When Rosa saw him, her face went pale. She looked terrified, more terrified than she'd been at the grocery store, more terrified than he'd ever seen her. Something was wrong. Miguel's instincts, owned by decades of survival, screamed warnings. He caught Javier's eye, gave him a subtle signal: "Be ready." Rosa approached their table with shaking hands. "See coffee?" "Rosa," Miguel said gently. "What's wrong?" She looked around the diner, at the other customers, at the windows, at the exits. Then she leaned down, her voice barely a whisper. "They know about you. They threatened my daughter. They want me to." She couldn't finish. Miguel's expression didn't change, but something deadly flickered in his eyes. "Who?" "I don't know his name. Teardrop tattoo. 3 men. They gave me this." She slipped the tracking device onto the table under a napkin. Miguel looked at it, then at Rosa, then at Javier. "Get her out," he said quietly. "Now." "What?" "No, I can't leave Sofia," Rosa protested. "Javier will get Sofia. You're coming with me. Both of you are in danger now." Miguel stood, his voice calm but absolute. "Trust me, Rosa. I've been protecting you from the shadows. Now I need to protect you in the light." Rosa had no choice but to trust a man she didn't know. A man whose name alone made cartel soldiers cross themselves. A man who'd just declared war for a woman he'd never even spoken to until 2 minutes ago. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Rosa's life is about to change forever, and you don't want to miss a single moment. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The safe house was in the outskirts of El Paso, hidden behind a fence that looked abandoned but was reinforced with steel. Inside, the furniture was minimal but expensive. A place designed for protection, not comfort. Rosa sat on a leather couch, Sophia curled up asleep in her lap. The little girl had cried when Javier picked her up from Mrs. Chen's, but exhaustion had finally claimed her. Rosa stroked her daughter's hair with trembling fingers, trying to process the last 3 hours of her life. Miguel stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Spanish in a voice so cold it made Rosa's skin prickle. When he finally hung up, he turned to face her. "I'm sorry," he said. "You shouldn't have been dragged into this." "Into what?" Rosa's voice cracked. "Who are you? Who were those men? And why? Why would you do all this for me?" Miguel was silent for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her, close enough to talk, far enough to give her space. "My name is Miguel Angel Cordero," he said, "and in this city that name means something dangerous." Rosa's eyes widened. Even she had heard whispers about the Cordero family, power brokers, business owners, and according to rumor, much more. "I'm a lot of things," Miguel said quietly, "most of them not good. But I saw you at that grocery store, returning milk for your daughter, and I saw myself, my mother, a long time ago." His jaw tightened. "I couldn't save her, but I could save you." "Save me?" Rosa's laugh was bitter. "You've put a target on my back. Those men, they know about you helping me. They'll kill Sophia to get to you." "They'll try," Miguel said, and something in his voice made her believe him. "But they won't succeed. Hector Ruiz is a coward who preys on the weak. He made a mistake threatening you." He leaned forward. "I'm gonna end this, but I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" Rosa's voice rose. "I don't even know you." "I know." Miguel's eyes softened. "But I know you, Rosa. I know you work double shifts to keep a roof over your daughter's head. I know you skip meals so she can eat. I know you're strong enough to survive anything, even this." Rosa wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she'd never been able to afford. Miles away in a warehouse in South El Paso, Hector Ruiz paced like a caged animal. "She warned him," he snarled, throwing a glass against the wall. It shattered, shards glittering in the dim light. That stupid puta warned him, and now they're both gone. His lieutenant, Carlos, stood with his arms crossed. "The tracker's not moving. They found it. Cordero's people are too smart for that." "Then we go louder," Hector said. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a contact. "If Cordero wants to play hero, we'll give him a stage. Carlos, contact the newspapers, the police. I want everyone to know that Miguel Cordero is harboring a woman and child, that he's kidnapped them." Carlos frowned. "But that's not." "I don't care about truth," Hector roared. "I care about pressure. Cordero built his empire in the shadows. Let's drag him into the light and watch him burn. The lie would spread faster than any truth ever could." By Saturday morning, Rosa's face was on the news. "Local waitress and daughter missing after alleged cartel kidnapping," the headline read. The story painted Miguel as a dangerous criminal who'd abducted an innocent woman and child for unknown purposes. Rosa's manager at La Estrella had been interviewed, looking worried. Carmen had cried on camera, begging for Rosa's safe return. Rosa watched the broadcast with growing horror. "They're saying you kidnapped us, that I'm your hostage." "I know," Miguel said calmly, but his knuckles were white on the coffee cup he held. "The police will be looking for me, for Sophia. What if they find us? What if they won't?" Javier spoke from the doorway. "This house doesn't exist on any map. But Jefe, we have a bigger problem. Our associates are getting nervous. They're asking questions, saying you're compromised." Miguel's jaw clenched. In the cartel world, perception was everything. If his people thought he was weak, distracted by a woman, they'd turn on him. Rivals would sense blood in the water. Set up a meeting, Miguel said, with our key people. Tonight, I'll address their concerns. And her? Javier nodded toward Rosa. She stays here, with protection. But protection could only do so much against a lie that had already poisoned the well. That afternoon, while Miguel was gone, Rosa's world collapsed again. Sofia woke up with a fever, a high fever. "Mama, my throat hurts," she whimpered, her small body burning to the touch. Rosa's heart seized. "How bad, baby? Can you swallow?" Sofia tried, then started crying. "It hurts." Rosa looked frantically at the guard Miguel had left, a young man named Mateo who looked barely 20. "I need to take her to a hospital, now. I can't leave the safe house," Mateo said, genuine regret in his eyes. "Jefe's orders, but I can call a doctor." "A doctor?" Rosa's voice broke. "She needs a hospital. What if it's strep? What if it's worse? I can't lose her because I'm hiding in some—" Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Rosa answered without thinking. "Hello? Rosa Delgado?" A woman's voice, professional, cold. "This is Detective Sarah Martinez with El Paso PD. We need to talk about your situation." Rosa's blood turned to ice. "I don't. We know Miguel Cordero is holding you. We've tracked your general location, but we need your help to bring him in safely. For your daughter's sake. Where are you?" Rosa looked at Sofia, burning with fever. At Mateo, watching her with worried eyes. At the phone in her trembling hand. If she told the police, Sofia could get medical help, but Miguel would be arrested, or worse, killed, resisting arrest. If she stayed silent, Sofia might get sicker. But she'd be betraying the only people trying to protect her. "Rosa?" Detective Martinez's voice sharpened. "Your daughter needs you to make the right choice. Tell me where you are." Sofia coughed, a wet, painful sound that tore at Rosa's heart. Rosa's voice broke. "I'm at—" The phone was suddenly snatched from her hand. Javier stood there, having appeared like a ghost. He ended the call and crushed the phone under his boot. "They traced the call," he said grimly. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they triangulate the location. We need to move. Now." "My daughter needs a doctor," Rosa screamed. "And she'll get one," Javier said. "But if we stay here, we all die." Mateo grabbed the emergency bags. "Rosa, wrap her in blankets. We're leaving." The safe house was no longer safe. And somewhere in the city, Hector Ruiz smiled, knowing his trap was closing. They fled through the back exit just as black SUVs with flashing lights appeared at the front gate. Rosa held Sofia tight, running through the desert scrub behind the property, Javier and Mateo flanking them with weapons drawn. Sofia's fever raged, her small body shook with chills. "Please," Rosa sobbed as they reached a second vehicle hidden in an arroyo. "Please, she needs help." "I know," Javier said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Get in. I'm taking you to someone who can help." "But Rosa—" He gripped her shoulder. "You need to understand something. You called the police. That phone call? It put all of us at risk, including Sofia." Rosa's stomach dropped. "I didn't tell them anything. The trace was enough." Javier's expression was grim. "Jefe trusted you. And now—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Rosa had made a choice in desperation, and that choice might have just destroyed the only man who'd ever tried to save her. The underground clinic was somewhere Rosa would never find again, a basement beneath a legitimate medical office, accessible only through a hidden door behind a supply closet. The doctor, an older woman named Dr. Luz Herrera, asked no questions. She simply examined Sofia with practiced efficiency, while Rosa sat nearby, numb with guilt and fear. "Strep throat," Dr. Herrera announced after 15 minutes. "Severe, but treatable. I'm starting her on antibiotics now. She'll need rest and fluids, but she'll be fine." Rosa burst into tears, relief, shame, exhaustion all crashing over her at once. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Dr. Herrera's expression softened. "Javier, she can stay here tonight. The child needs observation." Javier nodded, but his phone was already buzzing. He stepped away to answer it, his voice low and urgent. When he returned, his face was grim. "Chef's been arrested." Rosa's world stopped. What? The police raided his meeting. Someone tipped them off, told them exactly where he'd be, exactly when. Javier's eyes bore into Rosa. "Funny timing, don't you think? Right after your phone call?" I didn't tell them about any meeting. I didn't even know." "It doesn't matter what you knew," Javier said coldly. "They traced your phone to the safe house. They monitored communications from that location. They intercepted our plans." He stepped closer. "Miguel put everything on the line for you. His reputation, his safety, his empire, and you. I was trying to save my daughter." Rosa's voice cracked with anguish. "What was I supposed to do? Let her suffer? Let her die? You were supposed to trust us." Javier's control finally snapped. "That's what you were supposed to do. But you're like everyone else. You take and take and take, and the moment it gets hard, you run to the cops." Rosa flinched as if she'd been slapped. Dr. Herrera intervened. "Javier, enough. She's a mother who was terrified. You can't blame her for that." But Javier was already walking away, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Spanish. Rosa sank into the chair beside Sophia's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully under the influence of fever reducers and antibiotics. She should have felt relief. But all she felt was crushing guilt. Miguel had saved her, and she'd destroyed him. Downtown, at the El Paso Police Department, Miguel sat in an interrogation room with his hands cuffed to the table. Detective Sarah Martinez sat across from him, a file folder open in front of her. "Miguel Angel Cordero," she said, "you've been very careful over the years. No direct connections to cartel activities, legitimate businesses, clean record." She leaned forward. "But kidnapping? That's sloppy. Not like you." "I didn't kidnap anyone," Miguel said calmly. "Then where is Rosa Delgado? Where's her daughter?" "Safe." "Safe from what? From you." Miguel's expression didn't change. "From the men who threatened to kill a 4-year-old child to get to me. I protected them. That's not kidnapping. That's salvation." Detective Martinez studied him. She'd been working organized crime for 15 years. She knew Miguel's reputation. Ruthless in business, untouchable legally, but surprisingly principled compared to men like Hector Ruiz. Still, the law was the law. "Where are they, Miguel?" "Getting medical care. The child has strep throat. So turn them over to us. Let us protect them." Miguel actually laughed. A cold, bitter sound. "You think you can protect them better than I can? Hector Ruiz has officers on his payroll. He has eyes everywhere. The moment Rosa walks into police protection, he'll know. And he'll kill her just to hurt me." Detective Martinez's jaw tightened because she knew he was probably right. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A uniformed officer looked panicked. "Detective, you need to see this, now." In the observation room, a crowd had gathered around a laptop. Someone had sent a video to every major news outlet in El Paso. It was already going viral. The video showed Hector Ruiz sitting in what appeared to be a warehouse office, speaking directly to the camera. "My name is Hector Ruiz," he said with a snake smile. "And I want to clear something up about Miguel Cordero and Rosa Delgado. Miguel didn't kidnap that woman. I threatened her. I threatened her child. I forced her into a situation where she had no choice but to accept his protection." The room went silent. "Why would I do this?" Hector continued. "Because Miguel has been untouchable for too long. He thinks he's better than the rest of us, cleaner, more legitimate. But he's not. And now, thanks to me, the whole world knows he's just another criminal protecting his territory." He leaned closer to the camera. "But here's the real message, Miguel. I know where Rosa Delgado is right now. I know about the clinic, the doctor, everything. And unless you surrender yourself, not to the police but to me, I'm going to that clinic and finishing what I started." The video ended. Detective Martinez looked at Miguel through the one-way glass. He sat perfectly still, but something had changed in his posture. Something deadly. "We need to move," she said. "Now, get units to every underground clinic in the city." "You won't make it in time," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Javier stood there, somehow having walked past security, somehow having found his way into a police station like a ghost. He looked directly at Detective Martinez. "Hector's already on his way. Your units are 20 minutes out. He'll be there in 5. Javier's expression was stone. "You want to save that woman and her child? Let Miguel go. Now." "I can't just—" "You can," Javier interrupted, "because if Rosa Delgado dies in police custody, even indirectly, the media will crucify you, your department, your career. But if Miguel saves her," he smiled without humor, "then maybe, just maybe, you get to claim you orchestrated the whole thing, a sting operation, whatever story helps you sleep at night." Detective Martinez stared at him. Every instinct told her this was wrong, but every instinct also told her he was right. She looked at her captain. He looked at the video still frozen on the laptop screen. Then at Miguel through the glass. "Do it," the captain said quietly. "Cut him loose." 3 minutes later, Miguel was free. He walked out of the police station with Javier at his side, moving with lethal purpose toward a black SUV waiting at the curb. Other vehicles flanked them, a convoy materializing from nowhere. "How many men does Hector have?" Miguel asked. 8 at the clinic, maybe more as backup. "And us?" 20. Plus the doctor's building has advantages. Narrow corridors, limited entry points. Miguel nodded. He pulled out his phone and made one call. "It's done," he said. "All of it. The evidence, the recordings, the offshore accounts. If I don't walk out of this alive, release everything to the FBI. Every dirty cop on Hector's payroll. Every politician. Every deal. Burn it all down." He hung up. Javier glanced at him. "You know she didn't mean to betray you." "I know," Miguel said quietly. "She was protecting her daughter. I can't fault her for that. So why are you doing this? Why risk everything for a woman who—" "Because," Miguel interrupted, "someone has to prove that not everyone in this world is a monster. And if I die proving it—" He looked at Javier. "Then at least I die for something that matters." The convoy raced toward the clinic, and Hector Ruiz's men were already breaking down the door. Dr. Herrera shoved Rosa and Sofia into a supply closet. "Don't come out, no matter what you hear." "What's happening?" Rosa whispered, terrified. "What you brought to my door," Dr. Herrera said, but her voice wasn't cruel, just resigned. She pulled a pistol from her desk drawer. "Now stay quiet." The sound of splintering wood echoed through the basement. Men's voices, speaking Spanish, laughing. Rosa held Sofia tight, her hand over her daughter's mouth, both of them trembling in the darkness of the closet. Footsteps above them. Then on the stairs leading down. "Doctora?" Hector's voice called out mockingly. "I know they're here. Make this easy." Dr. Herrera said nothing. A gunshot shattered the silence, then another. Rosa bit down on her own hand to keep from screaming. Then, the unmistakable sound of automatic weapons fire, shouting, chaos, Miguel's voice cutting through it all like a blade. "Touch them, and every one of you dies screaming." What happened next would be told and retold in the streets of El Paso for years to come. Miguel Cordero walked into that basement like an avenging angel. His men moved with military precision, trained, disciplined, ruthless. Hector's thugs, used to intimidating the weak, suddenly found themselves facing true predators. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes. When the smoke cleared, Hector's men were either dead or fleeing. Hector himself stood with his hands raised, his bravado shattered, facing Miguel across the blood-stained floor. "You don't have the balls," Hector spat. "You're not a killer anymore. You've gone soft." Miguel's expression didn't change. "You're right. I'm not gonna kill you." Hector's eyes widened with relief. I'm going to do something worse, Miguel continued. He pulled out his phone, pressing play on a recording. Hector's voice filled the room, discussing bribes, murders, drug shipments, threats against federal witnesses. Everything incriminating, everything recorded. This goes to the FBI in exactly 1 hour, Miguel said. Unless you disappear. Mexico, South America, I don't care. But if you ever come back to El Paso, if you ever even think about Rosa or her daughter again, this recording goes public and I let the cartels know you've been cooperating with federal agents. Hector's face went gray. That lie would get him tortured and killed by his own people. Choose, Miguel said simply. Hector chose survival. He ran. Miguel opened the supply closet to find Rosa and Sofia huddled together, both crying, both alive. It's over, he said gently. You're safe now. Rosa looked up at him. This man who'd killed for her, who'd risked everything, who'd become a monster to protect her from monsters. Why? She whispered. Why would you do all this? Miguel knelt down so he was eye level with her. Because I saw you return that milk, and I saw myself. And I decided that if I couldn't save the past, I could at least save the future. He held out his hand, and after a moment, Rosa took it. 3 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of a small house on the quiet side of El Paso, a neighborhood where children played in yards without fear, where Rosa could walk to the corner store without looking over her shoulder. The house wasn't a mansion. Miguel had offered more, but Rosa had refused. I don't need a palace, she'd told him. I just need a home. So he'd found her this. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a swing set, and a kitchen that smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. The rent was paid for 5 years. After that, the deed would transfer to Rosa's name. Miguel had made sure of it. Rosa stood at the stove, making pancakes, Sofia's favorite. Her daughter sat at the kitchen table, coloring in a book, humming a song from school. Real school now. With uniforms and friends and teachers who actually cared. Mama, can I have strawberries on mine? Sofia asked without looking up. Of course, baby. Rosa plated the pancakes, added fresh strawberries and a swirl of whipped cream, and set it in front of her daughter. Sofia's eyes lit up the same way they had that night at the diner, the night that changed everything. But some things had changed in ways Rosa never expected. A knock at the door. Rosa wiped her hands on a dish towel and answered it, already knowing who she'd find. Miguel stood on her porch in jeans and a simple black t-shirt, no suit, no bodyguards, just a man holding a small bag from the local panaderia. I brought pan dulce, he said almost shyly. I remember you mentioned Sofia likes the conchas. Rosa smiled, a real smile, the kind she hadn't been capable of a few months ago. Come in. Miguel had been coming by once a week since they'd settled into the house. Never intrusive, never demanding, just present, checking in, making sure they had what they needed. Sometimes he'd fix a leaky faucet or help Sofia with her math homework. Other times he'd just sit and drink coffee while Rosa told him about her new job at the community center. Better hours, better pay, benefits that included health insurance. Mr. Miguel! Sofia jumped from her chair and ran to him. He caught her in a hug, lifting her off the ground. Hola, princesa. How's school? I got a gold star in reading, Sofia announced proudly. That's because you're brilliant, Miguel said seriously, setting her down. Just like your mama. Rosa's cheeks flushed. Over the past months, something had shifted between them, something neither of them had named yet. It was in the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. In the way her heart raced when his hand brushed hers accidentally. In the way Sofia had started calling him Tío Miguel without anyone telling her to. But Rosa was afraid. Afraid to trust. Afraid to hope for something more than survival. After breakfast, Miguel helped wash dishes while Sofia played in the backyard. The domestic simplicity of it, the normalcy, felt surreal to both of them. I got a call from Detective Martinez yesterday, Miguel said casually, scrubbing a plate. Rosa tensed. What did she want? To tell me Hector was arrested in Colombia trying to cross into Venezuela. The FBI had been tracking him. He's facing 20 years in a U.S. prison. Miguel dried the plate and set it on the rack. It's over, Rosa. Really over. Rosa let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. And you? Are you? Clean, Miguel finished. Cleaner than I've been in years. I've been restructuring, selling off the questionable businesses, investing in legitimate ventures, community development, legal real estate. He paused. I'm trying to be the kind of man who deserves to stand on your porch. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. Miguel, he turned to face her fully. I know I'm not what you need. I know my past, my sins are too heavy. But I need you to know something. His voice was steady, certain. That day in the grocery store when I saw you return that milk, you saved me just as much as I saved you. You reminded me that there's still good in this world worth protecting, worth fighting for. You didn't have to do any of this, Rosa whispered. Yes, I did, Miguel said simply, because some people are worth saving, and you, Rosa Delgado, are the most worth-saving person I've ever met. 6 months after that, on a spring evening that smelled like rain and hope, Rosa stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She wore a simple white dress. Nothing extravagant, nothing fancy. Just clean and beautiful and hers. Sophia stood beside her in a matching smaller version, holding a basket of flowers. Are you nervous, Mama? Sophia asked. Rosa looked at her daughter's reflection, healthy, happy, safe. Then at her own, no longer the woman who'd returned milk at a grocery store. Not because she had money now, but because she'd learned she was worthy of more than survival. No, baby, Rosa said honestly, I'm not nervous at all. In the backyard of their small house, under strings of lights and surrounded by neighbors who'd become family, Miguel waited. Javier stood beside him as best man, looking uncomfortable in a suit. Dr. Herrera sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes. Carmen from the diner waved excitedly. Even Detective Martinez had come off duty with a small gift wrapped in silver paper. It wasn't a big wedding, but it was theirs. When Rosa walked down the makeshift aisle, really just a path between folding chairs, Miguel's eyes filled with tears. This woman, who'd been broken and desperate, now walked toward him with her head high, her daughter's hand in hers, choosing him not out of need, but out of love. The officiant spoke about second chances and redemption, about how love could be found in the most unexpected places, about how sometimes the darkest nights led to the brightest dawns. When it was time for vows, Miguel spoke first. Rosa, I've done things I can never take back. I've lived in darkness for most of my life. But you, his voice cracked, you showed me that light still exists, that goodness still matters, that one small act of sacrifice in a grocery store can change everything. He took her hands. I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to choose between your dignity and your daughter's needs. I promise to be the man you see when you look at me, not the man I used to be. Rosa wiped away tears. Then she spoke, her voice steady and strong. I've been afraid for so long, afraid of hunger, of homelessness, of hope itself. But you taught me something, Miguel. You taught me that strength isn't about never needing help. It's about accepting it when it comes from a true heart. She smiled. You saw me at my lowest moment and decided I was worth saving. Now I see you, all of you, the good and the broken, and I choose you. Not because you saved me, but because you stood beside me while I saved myself. There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. Later, as the party wound down and Sophia fell asleep on Miguel's shoulder, Rosa stood at the edge of the yard, looking up at the stars. Miguel joined her, carefully shifting Sophia's weight. What are you thinking? He asked. Rosa smiled. I'm thinking about that day at Save Mart. How I felt so ashamed, so small, returning that milk, how I thought it was the worst moment of my life. And now? Now I know it was the best, Rosa said, leaning into him, because it led me here, to you, to this. She gestured at the house, at the sleeping child, at the future stretching before them like an open road. Miguel kissed the top of her head. I love you, Rosa Cordero. She smiled at the sound of her new name. I love you too. And in that moment, under the El Paso stars, two broken people who'd found each other in the most impossible way stood together. Not as savior and saved, not as powerful and powerless, but as equals, as partners, as proof that even in the darkest places, love could bloom. 1 year later, Rosa stood at the grand opening of the Rosa Delgado Community Center, a place Miguel had built in her name, offering free childcare, job training, and food assistance to struggling families in El Paso. A journalist asked her, "What's your message to people facing impossible situations?" Rosa looked at the camera, thinking of every person watching who might be where she once was, returning milk, skipping meals, choosing between dignity and survival. "I want you to know that you are seen," she said. "Even when it feels like you're invisible, someone sees you. Someone knows your struggle matters. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, help comes from the most unexpected places." She smiled. "Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Your lowest moment might be the doorway to your greatest blessing." Behind her, Miguel held Sofia's hand, watching his wife speak with pride burning in his chest. The little girl who'd once gone without milk now had everything she needed. The woman who'd once felt worthless now knew her worth. And the man who'd thought he was beyond redemption had found it in a grocery store parking lot, wrapped in the sacrifice of a mother's love. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the smallest acts of desperation. And sometimes the person watching from the shadows is exactly who you need. If this story touched your heart, don't just watch. Subscribe and join our community of people who believe in second chances, unexpected blessings, and the power of compassion. Hit that notification bell so you never miss stories that remind us that goodness still exists in this world. Drop a ad in the comments if you believe in miracles, and share this with someone who needs hope today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. We'll see you in the next story.